This episode of Linux Gamecast Weekly was made possible by Patreons like you. Patreon.com/Linux Gamecast. Totally sounded like some PBS.
Unlimited processing power! Your puny quad core cannot handle the dark side of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. I'm getting tired of doing that impression. This is from Aspyr, originally from Obsidian, and spinning off of the BioWare franchise. This is on the Aurora engine. It's priced at $9.99. Knights of the Old Republic 2. What is it? 5 years after the events of the award-winning original, the Sith are on the verge of crushing the Old Republic, and a lone Jedi, you will follow the light side or succumb to the dark. Or as a lone Jedi, will you? Whatever. This is KOTOR 2. You know it. It came out in 2004 originally. Got remade by Aspyr after they got the rights to these games. So, let's get on with the chairquisition. The council has determined that 1 chair it means that it's crap, 2 chairs means that it's meh, 3 chairs means that it's pretty good, and 4 chairs means that it was the chosen one. And we also got a categories of doom mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So, Ven, will you make it so?
Hashtag Metachlorians. All right, mixed with the working over here on the Ubuntu 1404 LTS. AMD 8150 octo-powered, 980 displayed SSD box of the business. Well, let's talk about how it mixed with the working on this system. Alt-Tab. Now, admittedly, I run separate X screens. You know, screen over here, screen over here, screen over here. Doesn't work. I mean, you can Alt-Tab. That's about it. I mean, as soon as you Alt-Tab, it's like, it'll just instantly regain focus. Not terribly happy with that. And switching between 1080 and 2160, because I do have a 4K UHD monitor, causes the game to revert to 720p, which is kind of where it starts off. And the mouse dribble mapping doesn't really work right there. I mean, you kind of got to guess at it or just use the keys on the board of keys, because, you know, the click targets, they're a bit off, causing you, well, I mean, all right, I guess you can use the controllers. Oh, controller, but we'll get into that in the control section. But how does it run, then? Well, young Padawan. About 60 FERPs at 1080p, and about 60 FERPs at 2160. I'm pretty happy with it, but the Alt-Tab thing of not being able to just like minimize it and get back to my business on the other things, wouldn't have to get a chair for that, Brad. We'll give it 3.
Yeah, on the Fedora 22 64-bit powered i7 6700K with the NVIDIA GTX 980 on, I think they're still the latest NVIDIA beta drivers. Yeah, I mean, the thing launches, it runs great. One thing that kind of bugged me was that it basically looks like it ran about as well as it does on my modern high-end PC as it did on my, like, Pentium 4 with, like, an NVIDIA GeForce, like, 6 something, the one from, like, 2000. Actually, that would have been, like, the one from 2002. But, I mean, it's an old game. It runs great. I mean, kudos to Aspyr for getting it right, as usual, so I'll give it 4 chairs. I didn't actually run into the Alt-Tab issue that Ben did. I was able to Alt-Tab perfectly fine, but I am on 2 discrete GPUs as opposed to 1 driving 3 monitors, so that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, on my Athlon X6 1100T with the NVIDIA GTX 780 Ti, no problems whatsoever, and I bought this game directly from Aspyr the day that it launched. It worked flawlessly. I can't ding it any chairs for that. It detected my controller. It did all of the resolutions. 4 chairs.
All right, so that's 3 chairs for Makes with the Working, but the spice must flow. Ven, what about shiny and sounds?
Make it so, number 1. Aspyr originally ported this for mobile devices, and I'm betting it looks passable on a 5-inch display at 720 or 1080p. At 2160p on a 28-inch display, maybe not so much, Brad. I was thinking about using one of the retexture packs, but upgrading from Meh to Meh Plus is hardly worth the effort. And I know the game claims to have shadows. It claims to have shadows, but fuck and all, if I can see them anywhere at any point. Now, that's the shinies. Well, all right, a little more on the shinies. 4K, really sharp. Textures, really meh. All right, we're just going to put that in there. But when we come to the sounds, voice acting, it's absolutely passable for the time period that we're kind of dealing with at that point. And, the background racket, it's very Star Wars-y. It's like, ooh, theatrical and all that shit. That's definitely a thing. I mean, it's not broken, but it's a bit fugly. It's a bit dated, and nothing really blows me away, so I'm going to give that 2 chairs.
Yeah, holy 2004 Batman. I mean, let's be real here. This is a game from 2004. That was not the best looking game on the market in 2004. Brought to modern systems, it's not going to be up to snuff with your Metros and your Borderlands and your whatnot. But I mean, it's passable. It gets the job done. The characters are emotive enough that you can sort of read what's going on their faces. As for the voice work, it is 2003, 2004. So you get your standard stable of like Kree Summer, Grey Delisle, all these folks. There's like 7 people who actually do all the voices for the entire game. And that's fine. They're all competent actors. They're all in a bunch of other things, and you wouldn't notice that unless you're crazy like me and actually look for these things. As for, I mean, like Ben said, it does sound like a Star Wars game. The sound design is very, very on point for that. It feels like an Old Republic game. But I mean, we haven't really explored that much of the Old Republic in terms of media, in terms of movies and comics and whatnot. So this is your primary exposure, and it feels like Star Wars-y. It's just, if you want to say this takes place 1,000 years before the actual Star Wars proper, I mean, it looks the same, but that's more of an internal flaw with Star Wars and its own timeline. Regardless, shiny and sounds, it gets the job done. Nothing special, especially from today's standards. I'll give it 2 chairs. Maybe 2.5, but it rounds down to 2.
Yeah, so the best thing that I can say about the graphics in this game is 60 frames per second at UHD 4K resolutions. That's nice. Admittedly, we are talking about PlayStation 2 level complexity graphics, so not a whole lot of polygons. Things are kind of edgy and bumpy, and the textures are not really very crisp and well scaled at all. There are some nice graphics. I remember in particular during the intro tutorial, there's a part where you take a droid outside on the outer hull of the spaceship, and I got out there and was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty neat. There's some galaxies off in the distance and everything. It looked good. Not amazing, though. It does Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars. Star Wars from 2004. 2 chairs.
All right, that's 2 chairs for shiny and sounds. Up next is Control. Now let's dial in those chevrons, Ven.
Oh, man. Make it so number 1. Aspyr added...
You used that one already, you lazy fuck.
Hey, man, I'm going to roll with what I know. Aspyr added control for your X-Clone controllers. They did. I'm guessing that was kind of a byproduct of initially doing the game on mobile. I'm like, we kind of got touch, but when I thought about that a bit more, I was like, man, this game probably would be genuinely fun with like touch controls. Using your X-Clone controller? Oh, just give it up, Brad. It's not going to fucking happen. That was like the equivalent of using, what is that app called? Keyboard to joy to key or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is funky, and we're talking unwashed shirt that you wouldn't even wear to the grocery funky. And I completely noped over to the keyboard and dribble within the first 10 minutes because I was like, I can't do this one simple thing it's trying to tell me to do. And even when you do that, dribble look, old school. I mean, it's brought back memories of Nope. Yeah, you want to do a mouse look? I'm surprised I didn't have to hold down number lock to mouse look. But fortunately, you can just right click and you can do a little mouse look. But A and D work the same, so get yourself some of that redundancy. The controls aren't broken, they're just dated and genuinely just disappointed with the way it was mapped to an Exclude controller. I didn't even bother to check if you could change anything, because I looked at that nightmare field and I was like, oh god, nope, that's not going to happen. Maybe Untouched a little bit better. Not busted, but only worth 2 chairs.
Oh yeah, the controls are exactly as I remember them. Clunky as balls. So you might actually remember that KOTOR 1, the game that this is ultimately based on, was originally released for the original Xbox. So there was controller support designed into it. However, it's clunky as balls. I gave it a shot with the Steam controller just because I had never actually tried to play this game with a controller before. Was KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2. Originally, I used keyboard and mouse, and that's where I stuck because, dear God, that controller mapping is just nightmare fuel. I understand what it's trying to do, and it's a reasonable approximation, but god damn, that's bad. The other thing with this game is the pathfinding and sort of how characters will position themselves once you give them commands or once their AI figures out where they need to go, and you will
imagine
run
doing
off
that with a controller though.
Oh yeah, no, it'd just be nightmare fuels. But you will the second you let someone go, they'll just run off in some random direction. I remember I was actually trying to fight these guys while having the Zabrak tech specialist disable mines. And then I switch off my melee character, and she runs immediately into the minefields. I'm like, no. Hit pause, switch back to her, run away, give her a ranged weapon, and then let her continue shooting, because otherwise she's going to go kill herself to death. And this is fairly typical of how the game actually controls. Sometimes you need line of sight in order to target someone, but sometimes that line of sight is skewed and it'll be on the screen, but the game will not determine that you don't have line of sight, and so you have to go into the middle of their fucking attack radius, and then they'll start attacking you, but then you can target them. It's clunky. That's really the only way I can describe it. But I mean, I got used to it. I played this game freaking 10 years ago. It wasn't that big a deal then. It wasn't that big a deal now. But for new people, it's certainly a giant hurdle to get over. So I'm going to give that 2 chairs.
Yeah. One of the big things that Aspyr hyped when they were first releasing the game was that they had added controller support. And, not having any background in these type of games, I took a look at it and said, oh, this looks like a controller kind of game. Tried it out and encountered my first game-breaking bug about 10 minutes in when I couldn't plant an explosive on a door when I needed to. And of course, by that point, I had already gotten past the tutorial on which keyboard buttons made it do the things that I needed it to do. So I ended up restarting using the keyboard and the mouse. I had a better go that way, but even then, those camera controls are so awkward. Middle clicking the mouse to center it behind you is absolutely essential, and you're not going to have a good time no matter what you try to do. So 2 chairs.
All right, that gets 2 chairs for controls. And finally, we get to the Frelling conclusion. Harvey, take us home.
Make it so, number 1. I've actually never played this game, so don't expect any cocaine-coated nostalgic glasses and/or excuses. Let's start with combat. This is the first game in my fuck-mothering life that made me whisper, I wish it was 4X. Really? What the hell is this? 1X Lite? I don't know. Neither does this game. I mean, here's a combat scenario. Hey, that orb thingy keeps healing the bots, so I best target it and give it a case of the nopes. The game was like, nah, Brad, I'm gonna stay right fuck-mothering here, locked onto the droid until you are killed to death, me. You know what, game? Fuck that noise. I'm gonna run away with the quickness and use a med pack, only to find out it only works if you click A to use that button, because if you double click, not only will it take away one of your med packs, it will also not apply it to the actual health meter. That's a brilliant thing. At the end of the day, I mean, this game does suffer from that early aughts, #hipster, we want to tell a theatrical story, but the tech's not quite there syndrome. They're kind of like directing. It's like a proto-Indigo prophecy. Maybe with all that business. And you do have to think, maybe there's something to be said about a game that one of the workshop mods is to skip like the first hour and a half or 2 hours of the game, which is a glorified tutorial section that will just bore you to tears. I mean, if you're not into this type of stuff, because it is not action-oriented at all. It is based on point hits and all that, and there's not really a good way to structure it, at least for me when it comes into the Clombat. Yes, Clunky Combat, Clombat, hashtag show title. Even on sale, even at $2.99. I say, yeah, pick it up if you want some of that nostalgia sauce, but if I'm sitting here having to say, I'm 2 ons into this game and I'm still effectively in a glorified tutorial, maybe not so much, Brad. I didn't have a good time even at that price, but something we absolutely need to point out, Aspyr, you did an awesome, fantastic job of porting this, and it makes me so happy at the end of the day, because if you go on the forums and you read about people trying to play this on the Windows right now, all they're talking about is, oh my god, it's so crashy and it's so horrible, buggy. Aspyr pretty much noped all that issues. But that said, for the fun, nope, one chair.
So, I mean, I picked up this game like 11 years ago, back when I was really into this, which was the Star Wars D20 RPG. It's not the specific version this is based off of. This is Saga. This one's based off the revised one, which I knew fairly inside and out way back when. So, the problem with D20 and that sort of system when you extrapolate it into into a video game is that by its nature, it's really swingy. You got to stack modifiers, and it really just becomes all micromanaging gear. Ben's going to fall asleep. But MT's already heard my freaking rant. Really, the better system for Star Wars is Savage Worlds. Not going to get into that because this isn't an RPG podcast. This is a Linux gaming podcast. So way back when, I played through about 3/4 of the game. I reassembled HK-47. I did all the random bits until I got to the point where you head to a force cave. And depending on how good or evil you were, you get a different result and then you progress. And that determines the tone for the rest of the game. I was straddling the gray too much. So I ran into the game-breaking bug where neither option allows you to progress. And I had already made all the choices you could have made. So I couldn't proceed any further. But going back, I decided this time I'm just gonna go full fucking evil badass spam force lightning. What I found is you really, if you just have a reasonable conversation with NPCs, you will just randomly get light side points. You can wander around murdering people indiscriminately, and it's like, oh well, you actually just killed a bunch of smugglers and kidnappers, so here have a bunch of light side points. And the only way to accrue dark side points is to just take the most the non-constructive conversation options to the point where you just tell everyone to go fuck themselves, and then your quest marker updates, which is useless because I need to know where these things are in order to, go accomplish these goals. I mean, my rose-tinted goggles have some scuff, but ultimately, I like this game. I liked it quite a bit. I've in the past 3 days, I've sunk 14 hours into it, so that I have trouble hitting 5 hours in most games. So that should tell you something about what I feel about this game. Right now I'm at the part where you actually have to survive a melee combat against 2 people who are spec for melee and a ton of attacks when you are playing Atten, the guy who's played specifically for range combat. So you gotta save scum. There are some points like that are really fucking annoying. But beyond that, I feel the game is really fun. It's an engaging story. Once you get through the glorified tutorial level, which is a slog, after you get off Telos, the game actually opens up. You can go do whatever the fuck you want. You're about 5 hours in at that point. And it's actually fun. You go build your lightsaber, you be your badass Sith or your goody two-shoes Jedi. And you will, if you like RPGs and you like Star Wars, aside from some clunky mechanics and some early 2000s, screwiness that they really could have done away with when they fixed this game, I would give this 3 cheers. It's not 4. It's not perfect fun, but it's enjoyable and it tells a good story. So,
well, I'm going to start out by saying I really wanted to like this game. I love Star Wars. Chris Avallone, who was the lead designer on the game, is a great writer. He's done a bunch of work with Fallout New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity. He's a old school Obsidian
Wasteland.
guy. Wasteland, yeah, exactly. and that gave me hope. It really did. But in typical Obsidian fashion, are you ready, guys? You got something you want to say? Or are you just messing with me? In typical Obsidian fashion, they've delivered an ambitious project and failed to polish it to acceptable levels. When this game was originally released, it was infamous for its game-breaking bugs and crashes and everything. And it seems like between Aspyr and the community mod, they've sorted most of that stuff out. Is it fun though? I don't know. I didn't really have all that much fun. I'm gonna have to give it 2 chairs. I don't know. I think the 5-hour tutorial really brought me down.
For sure. So that's 2 cheers for fun. We tally all this mess up. Knights of the Old Republic 2, Star Wars from Aspyr, Obsidian, and to a lesser extent BioWare gets 2 chairs. Final thoughts?
Not sure if want. Very valid. I mean, I think you pointed out a very good thing. Even when this game was released around 2003, 2004, it looked kind of like shit. I mean, compared to other titles. When that was the thing, a game was horribly broken. It was well known for being, correct me if I'm right, J-Man, unfinishable at some point.
Yeah, I can confirm that, yes.
Okay. And
he did confirm that during his review.
Things like that, man. And like Empty said, that tutorial, I'm 2 hours in, and it's like, no, but you got to get into the best part of the game. And I was like, how much time do you have? In what basement do you live where other people pay for your things? I actually have to work, he says ironically. But yeah, that's kind of a non-starter for me. And, you know, I love me some Star Wars. I mean, Captain Picard was one of my favorite characters, and
he's the best Transformer.
I mean, he's absolutely. One of the best. You know, especially at Babylon 5. You know, on that station, it was brilliant. Mm-hmm. So,
I think the thing we all can agree on here, though, is that Aspyr did a good job. The controller support isn't perfect, but for the most part, they held their end.
They made it more stable than the Windows version.
Yes, exactly. Very, very, very true. And yeah, I will admit, and that was the thing that made me stop playing when this game originally came out. I just picked it up again because we were reviewing it. But yeah, when I got to the open room where you meet Atton in the tutorial, I'm like, oh fuck, I remember this. This was like 3 hours long. But because I knew where everything was, you can just sort of rush through it. Definitely a bit of a slog. I don't necessarily recommend using the Steam community stuff that lets you skip the intro because you miss some interesting story points. But beyond that, yeah, I mean, there's in terms of gameplay, you're not really missing much. And it does tend to suffer a lot from this RPG fetch quest of you're in this one map, you got to go talk to all the people, then you got to to them all again, and so on and so forth. But that is very much a classic RPG-ism. It's just more exacerbated because everything's chopped up into like its own little ecosystem loading screen barrier thing. But ultimately, like I said, it's a good story. If you like Star Wars and you're willing to put up with the foibles, you will have a good time.